Hi, I'm Brett Robinson, Australian half marathon record holder, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Physiocram and Pogo Physio. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll aim to bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. We do this across a range of different episodes, expert editions, featured performers, coaches' corners, and interest editions. And on today's episode, I share a conversation with you that I had recently with freshly crowned Australian half marathon record holder Brett Robinson. Brett recently smashed the decades-long Australian half marathon record, running a very swift 59:57 at the Marugame Half Marathon in Japan. And of course, we discuss that incredible run on today's episode, a run that saw Brett net the quite novel but cool title of Strava's fastest ever half marathoner. Brett shares around career highs, including his fantastic 2019 London Marathon debut, where he ran an incredible 2:10:55 after going through the halfway mark at 63:25 and embracing the blow-up, as Brett terms it, on the back end of that marathon. We talk about running the final of the 5,000 metres in Rio in 2016 at the Olympic Games, and a very funny little tale that Brett shares on why and how the final was held up for 15 minutes after Brett forgot his race bib. We talk about the low points of Brett's career, the multiple femoral stress reactions, and what happens when pacing goes terribly wrong in a marathon. There's plenty of learnings as well. Altitude training, strength and conditioning, the power of self-belief, learnings taken from Eliud Kipchoge and the pacemakers of the INEOS 159 challenge, of which Brett contributed to. Brett shares his top 3 marathon tips, a physical challenge for the week, and so much more. So let's jump in with Brett Robinson, Australian half marathon record holder, Australian Olympian, on this featured performer episode. Brett Robinson, this has been a little while in the making, and after previous guests, Jack Rayner and Stuart McSwain, both listed you as the athlete that they most admire, how could we not feature you? So welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you very much for having me on, and thanks to those two boys for giving me such a high rap as well.
Well, they are rising talents of the Australian distance running scene, and obviously they're learning from one of the best, yourself. Let's start with a highlight, Brett. Just recently, the Marugame Half Marathon, you broke the Australian half marathon record. So you're now the national record holder for the half marathon in an incredible time, 59:57, a 250-kilometre average. And that was a record that had stood for decades. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was definitely in one of the top races I've ever had. And breaking 60 minutes for the half marathon has been a lifetime goal of mine. I think even before I was running on the roads, like when I was probably just a kid, I'd look at the top list in the half marathon, and there wasn't many non-Africans that had broken 60 at the time, but for some reason that was something I had set out to do in my life, and I've now achieved that, so I have to find another goal.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that there's not too many non-Africans, East African runners that had run sub 60. Obviously, one of your running friends, prior guest of the show, Zane Robertson from New Zealand, had 59:47, just a whisker in front I guess that served as somewhat of an inspiration to you as well.
Yeah, for sure. When you see guys like him and then Julian Wanders and Sondre Moen, who've all recently run sub 60, it does definitely show the non-Africans that it is possible. Those three actually train in Africa and around it, high athletes every day, and so they have that self-belief. But then, now I think that's coming on to me and the other guys around as well.
Yeah, it's a big thing, self-belief. What was it about Marugame that made you believe on the day that, you know, this is a day you could crack that elusive barrier? Was it what you'd observed at INEOS 159 as you roll as a pacemaker?
For Marugame, my training had been going really well. Like, I definitely felt like the month before everything had clicked perfectly. I just hadn't had a hiccup really. But you still never know, because like I've been training really well before, and then you've had bad races. But I just felt like I was moving in the right direction. And then, yeah, if you go back to 159, like the amount of time I spent with, mostly around the paces, I didn't spend that much time with Kipchoge, but a lot of paces that I would never have spent time with before. I learned a lot from them, just the way they go about training and then how they think about things. Like they don't put limits on themselves, and they do. If they have a goal, they set out to do everything to achieve that goal. Is
that, you said you learned a lot, observed how they functioned. Not limiting themselves is one thing, but then how did they practically example that to you, Brett? What things were they doing or showing? Was it their language, how they'd talk about training, or just how they'd conduct themselves? What were the practical outworkings of that?
Well, yeah, like I said before, like self-belief, and they have such high self-belief. They do just believe that if they put the work in, then the results will come. It's just simple, and they don't complicate things. They have how do you describe it? It's just like they're just laid back about it. They're just, if you do the work, you will get your results. Do the work, you'll get the results. So they're not afraid of doing the work. What did you observe in terms of some of the fellow pacemakers around their intentionality around recovery? Yeah, they're all really good. I think, and that is something. Like, there'll be times when they're a bit tired, so they're not afraid to rest. They're not afraid to, especially after a race. They're like, I'll just have easy days, easy week. Like, where I think a lot of people, like myself, definitely, it's not, let's not rest. Let's keep pushing. Even things are going well, where they are confident in themselves that they're going well, and that if they just need to keep that level or keep the body feeling fresh. Like, they're always about feeling good. Yeah. No, certainly having recently returned from a physiotherapy trip there in Ethiopia with Zane Robertson, who we just prior mentioned, it was really something I was impressed by, was that lack of rigidity and that flexibility around, I'm just not feeling this today, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah, I think that's something since INEOS that I've changed a little bit in my training. I want to be feeling good. I am not afraid to rest if I need, or if I have to miss an evening run, I will. I don't know. I hope my coach is okay with that. I'm not sure if you know, but but I think that's why I'm running well, because I do feel good. I'm definitely not cooked, but I think before I've pushed the envelope a bit too much, and that's where my injuries have come from, I'd say. And the injuries, Brett, from my knowledge, there's been a femoral stress reaction. What other things have you had to work through? Yeah, I've actually had a couple of femoral stress reactions, and then a bit of hip bursitis, and then nothing too bad outside of those. Like a few ITV issues when I was younger, and then apart from that, not too bad. Well, that's about the only thing we do have in common, Brett, is I don't have a sub 60 half to my name, but I do have a few femoral stress reactions over the years. I've had a few over the years, so mate, no, cool. Brett, in terms of the other highs of your career to date, I mean, you had that fantastic marathon debut in London 2019, finishing 13th in the London Marathon, 13th place overall, 2:10:55 on debut. But the thing that did make me smile was you raced it without a watch, but then you went through the half in 63:25, and on your Instagram post you commented, "Embrace the blow up." Can you take us through? Your debut marathon experience? Yeah, I was to do with the watch. I was always I'm in an arming to whether to wear the watch. When I do wear a watch, I just tend to look at it a lot, and if I wanted to run whatever 305s or the pace was, if I saw and it was 306s, I'd push. Which I decided, I'm going to go run at feel, run with the people that I think I should be around, which was guys like Callum Hawkins. There was a few other guys. There was guys, and the pace was supposed to be about 208 pace. But I'm also glad I didn't wear a watch, because if I looked at 10K and saw 29:50, straight away I would have lost it mentally, being like, I'm going to blow up. This is way too quick. But luckily, I just ignored all the clocks, didn't look at any of them. The only one I looked at was at halfway. But coming up to it, I was just like, all right, please don't be under 63, and then I'll be okay. And then I saw 63:25, and then I was good. But unfortunately, I had a bit of a stitch after that. In time-wise, I blew up, but I actually don't think I blew up physically. I just was struggling with a stitch, which definitely I would have slowed down, but I don't think I would have had slowed down as much as I did.
I mean, 2:10:55 still a pretty stellar debut, certainly an Olympic qualifier for Tokyo 2020. You obviously wore a watch in the Marugame half where you went sub 60.
Yeah, so I don't know. My thinking just always changes. But then, I wasn't even – so the thing was with that one, I wasn't concerned about the time. I didn't care what I was running. I was just there to try to compete and be as close as I could to the front. But, yeah, I decided to wear the watch. I'm not really sure why, to be honest. But the thing was, I looked at it a lot, especially in the last couple of K. I was looking at it every 20 metres, which I kind of hate. But – I think I will wear a watch in the future, but I need to stop myself from looking at it too much.
And a practical question, what watch are you wearing? What watch does Brett Robinson wear?
I was about to show you. I'm wearing a Koros. It's a new watch.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a good shout out for Koros. Yeah. Brett, I have to read out your splits because, you are now crowned the fastest half marathoner on Strava, which is kind of a cool novel crown, right? And your splits, here we are, 255, 249, 248, 250, 250, 249, 250, 250, 252, 248, 251, 248, 252, 250, 249, 248, 254, 253, 245, 251, 252, and obviously running that last 100 metres home pretty hard. I mean, that's incredible consistency. So obviously your strategy worked well that day wearing the watch.
That pacing had nothing to do with me, really. I went into that just all right, let's conserve energy as much as possible the first 10 to 15 kilometres. I'm aggressive in a lot of races, but I thought, all right, this one I just want to sit in, get through the race, and be coming home really strong, and just being there in the competition at the end. So I was lucky that the pace was that pace and that consistent, because it wasn't me. It was just me sitting in. At one stage, I was probably in 30th position at probably 3K, but only 10 metres behind. But
yeah, wow.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't me at the front.
Brett, also on some career highs, making it the final of the 5,000 metres in Rio, finishing 14th. But the thing that stood out to me as I prepared for this session with you was that the final was delayed 15 minutes while Aussie Brett looked for his race bib.
Yeah, I don't know how people keep finding out about this. I saw it in someone else a while back. I'm like, how do people know? But so I just, for some reason, I assumed they would give me new numbers for the final. I think because I was rooming with people that were running two events and they got two numbers, so I just assumed I'd get a second number. So I rocked up, and it was me and then a guy from Uganda and then someone else. And they're just like, where's your numbers? And I'm like, I don't know, at the hotel. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, what's going to happen here? And then because the officials were arguing with other officials about getting the numbers and stuff like that, and because they needed to have special timing chips. So it took forever. And, but we were standing in you go in this kind of hallway before you go out on the track. And I remember Mo Farah and Bernard Legat both came up to me what's going on? I'm like, man, I forgot my numbers. And they were like, oh, yeah. They didn't care at all. I thought, geez, these guys about it, or Mo, the favourite to win, and I'm delaying his race by 15 minutes, and he just doesn't even care at all. He just chilled out.
He was just chilling.
Yeah.
And what happened? Did they issue you? Did someone have to actually go back to your hotel and get your number or your bib, or they gave you a new one?
Yeah, they gave us new ones, but it was just like we didn't get him in the quorum, we didn't get him in the second quorum, and then we were all the way pretty much just before we went on the track. And they were like, oh, we'll send everyone else out, and then we'll just wait for these three, and then they can get the numbers. And I'm like, Jesus, like, what are my family going to think when they see everyone else and then me not out there? But, it came, and, it just, I don't know. There's just nothing on the track for 15 minutes.
Yeah, so it must have, taken a little bit of a toll, that stress, pre the start.
Like I knew they weren't going to like run the race without me, so I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be right. But yeah.
Well, that's it's a pretty it's as stressful, I guess, as a technicality could get, an Olympic final like that. So that's kind of cool. Brett, in terms of you getting started, how did it all start for you? Did you grow up knowing you had a real gift, a talent, or were you excelling in junior cross country, aspiring to be a runner? Yeah,
like I played soccer as a kid, pretty much since I was like 10 years old, maybe younger, and then I it would have been since I was about 7. And then once I got to year 6, I had this PE teacher that was he was into running, and he noticed I was pretty good at cross country, so he started taking me down to a few in Victoria with AV races, so kind of like ones like that, but like summer ones. And I would just go and do them, and they were pretty fun. And then he got me ready. I made the nationals for under 12s or under 13s, whatever it was at that time. And I went there. I think I came 18th, and I really enjoyed it. So I got like a proper coach once I got into high school, and I kind of just went from there. Like I improved every year. I think I came 6th at nationals the next year, and then I was always kind of around in the top 10 or so. And by the time I got to 15, I was pretty good at soccer, but then I was just enjoying probably the social side more of running and athletics. So I just ended up quitting soccer and just focusing fully on running.
And was there ever a moment in your development where, you sort of, the penny dropped and you thought, I can really take this somewhere?
I guess I got pretty good success when I was young, over 1,500. Like maybe when I was like 14, 15, I was like getting medal at nationals. I'm like, and it came pretty quickly to me. But then once I was 18, 19 and went to World Juniors and like I went there, I ran like 3:42 as a junior, and then went to World Juniors and I came 8th. And I just like, okay, I think I can actually be pretty good at this and like do it as a career, and do it as I'm older.
And who are the runners or the athletes that a young Brett Robinson was, looking up to, aspiring towards?
All the people I've looked up to, I've always been close to. So when I was, say, 15, I started training with a guy named Marty Dent, who went to the 2012 Olympics for the marathon. And then I was coached by Philo Saunders, I looked up to him as well, and who's still coaching now. And then also guys like Ron Gregson, who was like one of my best mates. But it was weird because he was, I was 18, 19, and he was running Australian records. But he was like one of my best mates. So I always had like a world-class athlete that I could text anytime I wanted and call anytime I wanted to hang out with. So like that was like a great tool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had some pretty impressive talent around you, and environment. There's that saying, environment dictates performance, and certainly, your current environment is a great development tool as well. Obviously, with Melbourne Track Club and Nick Badeau. What's the greatest? You shifted from Canberra to Melbourne. Obviously, what's some of the biggest learnings you've taken under Nick's tutelage, Brett?
So actually, before I moved to Melbourne, Ron Gregson said to me, I'm moving to Ballarat to live with Collis Birmingham. We got a spare room if you want to like come down for a few weeks. And then he said, if you like it, you can stay and live there. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to move down. Like, I think it's the best thing for me. They were like trying to set up their own little kind of training camp environment. So I'm like, yeah, like that's something like I'm never going to get an opportunity like that again. If I turn that down, it could be something I regret in my future. So that's when that's when you talk about the environment. For 2 years, I lived with 2 of the best runners in Australia, and that's where I made my big breakthroughs. I actually in 2012 I had a stress fracture, and then I moved down after that. And then 2013 I qualified for the World Champs 5K and moved. And then made the final at the World Champs as well, which was something that kind of happened really quick. And it was all thanks to moving down to Ballarat and training with those guys. And then after that, then I moved to Melbourne because the group was getting bigger down here. At the time, there wasn't a big group down here. And then, so I spent more time with Nick, and that's when I reckon I learned a lot from him, just to be smarter in training and not to be pushing all the time, and just to be getting weeks on weeks where I think I always had a small-minded view of just, I've got to race in 6 weeks, let's train hard for that, where now it's more like, let's train for something in 12 months or 18 months.
So it's taking that, as you say, that not a small-minded view, but a bigger picture view, being smarter in training. And Ryan mentioned on his featured performer episode, Gregson, that under Nick's tutelage, he'd really looked at every session as a building block towards the end goal.
I think when you're young, you like look at I've got to smash this track session, where I look at more having a consistent month now. And that's when I'm going to get good results. Like one track session is not going to make the difference for me, but if I can have 10 sessions in a row or 50 sessions in a row, like that's when it gets better.
Yeah, that's powerful. Have a consistent month. Brett, there's been some incredible career highlights. Every athlete experiences the opposite. What's been the darkest day in your athletic career to date?
I would say it was when I had my second femoral stress fracture in 2017. I was flying at the time. I had been at Falls Creek and I was running so well, and then I went the day I did this hill session, and like now I think back, it was like such a good session, and just all the training before that had been so good. And then I drove back to Melbourne because I was flying to Uganda the next day, and I just every time I got out of the car, I'm like, wow, my hip's really sore here. And then I flew to Uganda, and I was like getting treatment every day, and it was just getting worse and worse. Yeah, I just got to the point where I'm like, I knew I was injured, and I had to pull out of that race, which like was such a shame because I knew I was going well the months after that, because I kept trying to push through it. So it was just like I did so much damage, and then I had a good like 4 or 5 months of not running, and I just had setback after setback during that injury, and that was just one of the darkest days I've had.
And was it a stress reaction or a full stress fracture at that point that you picked it up?
It ended up being a fracture.
Yeah. So obviously it's a bit of a way back. Brett, in terms of some learnings, some career learnings, teachings, if you like, from your end, lessons on pacing. What can you share around pacing? Obviously, you've executed brilliantly recently in Marugame there. Your New York Marathon outing in 2019. You were leading there, coming into First Avenue, I believe, or really pushing the pace. And then from what I can gather and what I've picked up, it's, you really just hit the wall, if you like, and sort of trotted home. But I think you were walking at one point. So what are the lessons Brett Robertson could share on pacing for everyday runners and marathoners?
The mistakes I usually make is I'm aggressive and I'm like wanting it to be fast and pushing and worried. A lot of just wasting mental energy, most of it. Where in Marugame and London Marathon, I got in there and I completely switch off. I don't worry about the pace. I just go with how I'm feeling and sit in. If 1K is a bit slower, that's fine. If 1K is a bit faster, that's fine. Just not stress. I think people waste too much energy stressing about the pace, pushing to, and then running by feel as well. Like I think that's why people run quicker on the road than they do on the track, like over 10K, because they more run on feel. So you can look at their splits, and one might be a 245 and one a 255, which doesn't look ideal, but maybe that is like how they're feeling at the time. Where if you go and run 68s consistently on the track, maybe you're just pushing yourself over the edge, and then you blow up.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Very interesting. You've identified there, I think it's really rich, that when you worry about the pace, it can almost have a counterintuitive effect.
Yeah. And then, exactly. And then I think you're wasting mental energy, which I think people don't think enough about, because it definitely does take a toll on your body.
On a very related but very different level example, running this morning, and I had to deal with a phone connectivity issue with Telstra, and I've had many Telstra calls recently, telecommunications, and I had my earphones in, so they called. I took the call, and it was a frustrating conversation. And I finished that call, and the next kilometre felt so difficult. And I thought it's no surprise. It's just a nice little example. It's no surprise. I was just mentally very frustrated and uptight, and the next kilometre felt horrible. So, very practical little example. Brett, what role does strength... Actually, before we go there, your bone stress injuries, what learnings have you taken from, managing your bones as an elite distance runner? You've had a history of femoral stress reactions there. Apart from training loads, anything else you've outworked now to try and minimise the likelihood of this happening again? Yeah,
so I think mostly I've changed my strength programs. Say my first one, I would have barely been doing any strength. And then in my second one, I was actually doing a lot of strength, but I think it was the wrong kind of stuff. Having more scans on my bones, on my hip joints to work it out, that I found I have very shallow hips, so I can't get into range. Where I'll do some like deep squats, deep single leg squats, and like lunges and stuff like that, which straight away just aren't good for my hips. So I think when I'm trying to run as much as I am before a marathon and then putting my hips in a position they don't like, it's just asking for disaster. So I've just had to adjust some of the exercises I do now.
So you don't go as deep into range in your S&C stuff at the hips?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even the other day, I did some Bulgarian split squats where all the weight's gone onto one leg, and it just didn't feel good straight away. So we just took it straight out, and I just went back to pretty much single leg squats onto a high box. So I'm not going down much at all. Yeah,
and it's so interesting you say that, having just observed Zane Robertson's strength and conditioning program in Ethiopia. He was very much the same. You might have a blanket exercise that's typically good for distance runners, but when it gets to the pointy end, like yourself, like Zane, there's those nuances that you need to take into account, as you said. Yeah. So it's really interesting. What's your strength and conditioning regime look like, Brett, at the moment? Are you is it a couple of times a week doing your individual program, home stuff, core stuff?
So twice a week into the gym. And then it's not a extensive program. I start off with a few glute activations, adductor activations, and a little bit of jumping, just to get some stability work. And then into just three main exercises, which is a single leg squat. What else do I do? And then I think it's called a hyper extension, where I'm kind of doing my back hamstring kind of thing at the back, and then a band pull. So if I was a sprinter and I'm doing my starting position, just kind of out once against a bit of resistance, just to get that glute firing again, and then just some basic core things. And then outside of that, pretty much I do some glute activations before every single run. So something I've really found made a difference with keeping me injury free and especially if that's all I do during the week, at least then I know I'm still getting 10 to 13 sessions. They're only 10 minutes of work, but 10 minutes of glute work every day, or twice a day.
And that would be with bands and things, Brett, just sort of body weight stuff, yeah?
Yeah, just body weight stuff. Like a crab walk or a prone lift leg or a glute bridge, something like that.
Yeah, brilliant. And Ron Gregson did share his little band exercise routine back several years ago, so maybe we need Brett Robinson's little band routine as well.
I've been showing because anyone that gets kind of a bit injured, I'm just do these. And now I go down training and I see 5 people doing them, it's taking over.
Yeah, so look out. You're listening to Brett Robinson, Australian half marathon record holder, Australian Olympian, sharing around his career, highs, lows, and learnings. Support for today's show comes from PhysioCrem. PhysioCrem is a topical massage cream containing natural plant-based ingredients, ideal for the temporary relief of muscular aches and pains. If you're conscious of what you put on your body, you'll be happy to know that PhysioCrem does not contain parabens or hydroxybenzoates, and its non-greasy formula doesn't leave any sticky residue behind. PhysioCrem can be found Australia-wide at your local Coles, chemist, or health store, as well as via their online shop. They've offered a 20% discount off the entire online range to listeners of the show simply by using the coupon code POGO. Jump over to the website physiocrem.com.au, FISIOCREM.com.au, and remember, hurting sucks, but Physiocrem have got your back. Today's episode is also brought to you by Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to complete their rehabilitation, cross their physio finish line, and in doing so, get back to the things that they love to do. Our philosophy is simple. We do not wish to see you for a session more than what you require. We just want to help you get back to your best, doing what you love. To find out more about Pogo Physio's award-winning services, including our 1-hour initial appointment or our very popular online telehealth physiotherapy consultations that can be taken up anywhere in the world, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back with Brett Robinson on this featured performer episode, sharing on his career highs, lows, and learnings to date on this featured performer episode. Brett, we're going to jump into a performance round, but just quickly before we go there, altitude, the role of altitude training for yourself. I've never been more interested, having had my own poor experience at 10,000 feet there at outside of Addis, running too far on day one. How have you found altitude in terms of your preparation for events and training in the past? Any tips, any insights, stories?
Yeah, well, I've never been to any altitude that high. Obviously I've trained a fair bit at Falls Creek and in America and in Spain, but it's always been about, I don't know, between 1,600 and 2,000 meters, so it's nothing near Ethiopia. But a lot of the good things about altitude is getting the environment, getting away from whatever distractions in life, getting with a good group of people and training. But in saying that, like, Stewie just ran an Australian record off running in Melbourne. He ran the 10K record, and then I didn't get to go to Falls Creek because of the fires, and I ran my Australian record. So I don't think it's the be all and end all, but yeah, like I do also come back from there feeling very fit as well. But I think it's mostly that I get away for a month and I put my head down.
It's a lack of distractions.
Yeah.
Which can only augment or improve, arguably, your recovery.
Yeah, exactly. And I do live a pretty run of life anyway, because I get up, I go for a run, and then I just sit around and rest until my next run. So, I do that in Melbourne as well.
There's that adage, and I know it keeps coming up on this show, but from Shona Halson, AUS former recovery centre scientist there, and it's the only training you're benefiting from is the training you're recovering from. And that was certainly a big observation that I had cemented from observing a few things in Ethiopia there. They train hard, but they rest well as well.
Yeah, and I think I do see a lot of people at Falls Creek, especially the younger people, that go up and they start off way too hard, and then your body's just not recovering a little bit on the first day, doesn't catch up on the second day, doesn't catch up on the third, and then by a week in, you're just not recovering at all, and that's when you go downhill. Yeah,
recovery. Brett, are you ready for a performance round?
Yep, sure.
Training session most disliked?
I would say probably short hills.
What are we talking?
Like at Wattle Park, it's a place in Melbourne where we train. We do something like a 2K threshold and then 6 300, 350 meter hills, and then do it a few times. I don't know. Just with this, when I'm training for 5K or something like that, and then the speed guys just absolutely kill me on that. And
that's full gas, flat out?
For me, it is.
Yeah.
For them, probably not. But yeah, for me to try to keep up, I'm going pretty hard. Yeah, like sometimes Nick will go, all right, on the 5th one, absolutely whack it. And then, I'm just stuffed.
Is that the phraseology Nick would use, whack it?
Yeah, whack it. Yeah.
It's a Nick Bedoism. Training session most loved?
I'd say threshold, or like the marathon sessions I've been doing in the lead up to marathons. That pace just feels really comfortable to me. So I feel like I can do that all day. And it does get very long and you do get tired, but it's a different kind of hurt that I kind of enjoy.
And what sort of distance are you talking about there, Brett?
So say for threshold, like tomorrow, I'll go and do a 12-kilometer threshold about. But then in the marathon sessions, it might be something like 4x5K. So a bit longer, but just a little slower.
Favourite pre-race meal? What fuels you on race day?
Rice. Lots of rice.
Anything with the rice?
Not really. If I this is kind of a bit weird, but sometimes like my last meal, say about 3 hours before, will be rice with a chocolate muesli bar mixed in.
A chocolate muesli bar? Just
yeah, maybe like a chocolate nut bar or something like that. It just kind of adds a little bit of flavour. Yeah, and it kind of melts or something like that.
Bedtime, morning time, Brett, what's that look like typically in a training block?
Yeah, I wish I could get to bed earlier, but I'll probably get into bed about 11:30, hopefully be asleep before midnight, but I have a bit of trouble getting to sleep. And then I get up. Usually my alarm goes off at 7:45. I'll probably get out of bed at 8:10.
Yeah, good. 2 hits of the snooze button, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Prior guest, David Cunnington, sleep physician, might comfort you, Brett, to know that you're with your 90% of the population has to hit the snooze button twice.
That's definitely me.
So, yeah, and ever since I learnt that from David, I've been joyfully hitting the button twice every morning and not feeling guilty. Good on you. Brett, who's the athlete you would most admire and why?
Okay. Yeah, I would say, I've definitely got to say 2 people maybe. Eliud Kipchoge, just because of what he's done recently and because I've been lucky enough to spend time around him and see how mentally strong he is. Like, he set out that goal of breaking 2 hours and he achieved that. Like, not many people can say something like that. It's just been unheard of. And then Stuart McSwain, because he's one of my best mates and I get to see him every single day.
Yeah, wow. So Eliud Kipchoge and Stuart McSwain, and obviously you both shared that INEOS 159 experience together.
Yeah.
Toughest competitor you've ever raced against Brett?
Okay. Yeah. Ron Gregson, I'd say. We don't race much because we do a different distance, but even if he's like racing at my distance, he is hard to beat, and he's always someone I would have to change my race plan to make sure I was beating him. I remember at Noosa Bolt a few years ago, he was running the 5K, and my whole thing was just to pretty much try to destroy Ryan, because I knew if I gave him a chance, he would be so hard to beat. So it was just hard from the start, which not many people make me do that.
And who got the chocolates?
Me, luckily, and luckily me.
That day. Brett, is there a mantra that you would typically use when you're racing, something that's consistently with you?
I wouldn't say there's just a consistent one, but I definitely do talk to myself and I kind of egg myself on. It's funny, Marugame, I think, was the first time I was actually kind of yelling at myself during the race out loud. Like, I don't know why it just came out in the last few K because I had these guys right on my back and I was running away from them, but I was just kind of egging myself on and telling myself I can do it. And it was saying it out loud. Usually I just say it in my head, but this time I was kind of yelling it at myself.
What were the? Can you share, or it's not PG?
Yeah, probably not PG. A few swear words in there, but pretty much just come on, Brett, you can do it, but add a few things in. Add
a few other colourful words. What were the responses of the other athletes around you? They would have seen their zone.
I don't think they could hear me. They were, because they were probably 10, 15 minutes back at this point. So, but I just knew the race was still on, and I just had to put really dig in that last few K.
And Brett, talking about the zone, how would you describe being in the zone?
For me, it is being completely switched off and either just focused on exactly what I'm doing, or in the race, it's just doing exactly what I'm doing, but having my mind away from the pain, away from pace, away from anything. So I literally can think about happy thoughts. That's really what I try to do. Think of any happy memories or happy thoughts. That's kind of my zone. Memories
as in other races, or?
But anything just times with my friends or things like that. Just anything that will kind of bring joy into my brain. I think that's a good thing that can distract you from pain.
Yeah, that's such a great insight. And Brett, when was the last time you were in that zone? Marugame?
Yeah, definitely Marugame.
Yeah. Wow.
I would say even a little bit. Well, I ran a 10K 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't say I was much in it in that race. But yeah, Marugame definitely.
And Brett, final question in the performance round is, what's the hardest training session you've ever done?
Yeah, I did some really hard ones. I actually trained for a marathon 2 years ago for Fukuoka Marathon, and I was kind of new to it. And some of those I was doing like these. Yeah, I did a day. It's probably my hardest ever day. In the morning, I had an hour warm up and then did 8 by K, and then maybe 30-minute warm down. But before the night before, I had to stop eating at like 8 p.m. and then I wasn't allowed to eat again. So I wasn't allowed to eat in the morning. Did that 8 by K session with a long warm up, and then the rest of the day I wasn't allowed to eat any carbs. So I just ate like meat and salad and proteins and stuff like that. And then in the evening I did a 10K threshold pretty much, and off like maybe did like a 2K warm up and then a mile warm down. So that was like a huge day, and it was in a depleted state.
Wow, that's painful just to hear. What the depletion, that was obviously strategic.
Yeah. So it was something we did. I don't do it anymore, but then to try to get your body to be better at using fat. So I also did a 40K run, depleted, and like I felt like I was delirious at the end. Which is, to be honest, I feel like that at the end of a marathon as well. So it does get your body ready for that feeling. But now I more go over the let's train your body to take on more carbs. Yeah,
I mean, at the intensity you're running at, it's primarily going to be carbohydrate metabolized.
Yeah, exactly. I learned that off one of these other podcasts on this one.
Oh, is that right? Through Trent Stellingworth?
Yeah.
He's very wise. So at London, when you ran your debut, 2:10:55 or 54, did you feel delirious at the end of that? I'm asking because I've run a few, and I have felt pretty horrible at 35K or thereabouts every single time. So is that how you felt?
Yeah, definitely. Because, so after London, I didn't take any drinks after 20K because I had this stitch. So I was too scared to take anything on because I thought it was just going to make it worse. So I was definitely running out of fuel towards the end. I remember going through 40K and like looking at the clock, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to run like 2:08 here. But now when I look at my splits, I was going through in like 2:02 or something like that. So there was no way I was ever going to run 2:08. Like I would have run, if I could sprint the last 2K, I would have run 2:10 low. So I was definitely delirious at that point.
Well, it's somewhat comforting, Brett, to know that even the best feel like that. Brett, well done. Yeah. You're out of the performance round. We are so excited at the Physical Performance Show to be bringing you the first ever live event. Coming down under in July 2020 is none other than the most downloaded guest of the show to date, and that is acclaimed sports scientist, father of polarized training, the 80-20 principle, Dr. Stephen Seiler, all the way from Norway. Dr. Seiler will be conducting a one-day workshop, 9 to 5 p.m, titled Sustainable Training for Attainable Endurance Goals, Intensity Distribution, Interval Training, Periodization, and Monitoring. If you are an athlete of any level, a coach, a health or medical professional, fitness professional, or student of the exercise, medical, or sports sciences, this is an event not to be missed. To secure your ticket for this event to be held at the Bond University Institute of Health and Sport, simply jump over to pogophysio.com.au. Listeners of the show can enjoy 10% off the ticketed price simply by using the coupon code TPPS over at the checkout by visiting pogophysio.com.au/Dr. DR, that is Seiler, Seiler. For now, let's jump back with Brett Robinson on this featured performer episode, sharing on his career highs, lows, and learnings to date. Brett, top 3 marathon tips for a marathoner out there. What would they be?
Yeah, so I think, do you mean in the training or in the race?
Yeah, so Brett Robinson's advice for anyone out there looking to run their best marathon, whether it's first timer, someone chasing a PB, PR.
Yep. Okay, I would say 1, eat a lot, fuel your body, make sure so that it's recovering, and then it's having everything it needs like for those big sessions, and then obviously for the race, like you've got to really feel it then. 2, don't be afraid to take like rest days or like have an easy run. Like just because the program says it is one thing doesn't mean it has to be that exactly, because if you're going to put yourself in more of a hole, then there's no point looking at the program anyway, because you're going to be behind it. And then 3, pace yourself correctly. Don't do what I've done in my few marathons, but yeah, try to figure out what plan you're going to do and then get on that pace, switch off, and then switch back on in that last 10K.
Mate, they are brilliant learnings there. Eat a lot, fuel your body, fuel for the work required. Don't be afraid to take rest days and pace yourself correctly. That's Brett Robinson's PB recipe right there. He's got to take the elixir himself.
Yes, exactly.
Brett, actually, it makes me cues me to ask you the Marugame Half. What was the fueling like through the race there? One gel or? No,
nothing. Through the race. No, yeah. I just
1 hour. It's 1 hour. It's 59. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I heard if you it takes about an hour before you start breaking down too much. So luckily, I just ran just under.
Yeah.
If I went over, it would have maybe blew up.
Extra few seconds.
Yeah.
No, look, great, Brett. Brett, looking ahead, obviously a big year, Olympic year. So what are you looking ahead at with the Olympics looming?
Yeah, so I have the World Half Marathon Championships in Poland in, about 3.5 weeks now at the end of this month. And then I'm going to stay in London for a bit. And I'm going to pace some of London Marathon at probably the 2:11 pace, and that's going to be a bit of a training run for me, and something I can practice running at should be hopefully a nice easy pace, and then practice my fueling and stuff like that, but without doing a full marathon prep and running the full marathon and beating up my body. And then after that, it's just I'll be back to Australia and getting ready for the Olympic marathon.
Yeah, what an experience that will be. Brett, if you could boil everything you've learnt through your career, which is, just really hitting this great patch of success, mixed, of course, with the lows that go with that and the learnings. But Brett, what would your single piece of advice be to listeners of this show who are out there trying to pursue their own best?
I think Jack actually said this one, like, don't take it for granted or don't get content. I think I definitely, in my early years, like especially after 2013, I had this great year and I thought, yeah, this is easy. Like, I've made it. And then you get an injury and you start from scratch again. So yeah, like I'd say try to do the right things to keep yourself going, keep yourself moving forward and staying uninjured and building on fitness. Because if you get lazy for a second, then that's when things go wrong.
Yeah, so powerful. Brett, some fun stuff here to close it out. Your tattoos, the birds, I believe they're birds. And I think even right now you might be sporting a bit of Glad Wrap there, a new one.
Yeah, I actually just got 2 new tattoos today.
So there's a new Brett Robertson artwork to be revealed. Don't let the cat out of the bag. Let's find out what they are. But any symbolism on those? You do not have to answer, of course.
No, I don't. I just like tattoos. Pretty much no meaning behind them. I just, since I've been young, been interested in tattoos, and I just kind of kept getting them. But then probably the only one I've got that has meaning is the Olympic rings.
Yeah, brilliant. Former featured guest at the show, Brett, Vincent Lewis, current world triathlon champion. He sports a big chest of Latin writing, which is actually Latin for "to have peace, you must wage war."
Okay. A bit more meaning than mine, maybe.
Yeah. No, look, brilliant. And then, obviously, Brett, it's a big year for you. So certainly wish you all the best for the year ahead. And thanks for sharing. Finally, 3 people at a dinner table. Who would be at your table and why? A bit of a fun one.
So I would go Maury Plant, Nick Bideau, and Stuart McSwain. I'll go into them. So Maury, for people that don't know, was a big part of Australian athletics and world athletics, to be honest. And then a big part of my group in Melbourne Track Club. He recently died about 6 weeks ago. And then he was someone that I spoke to pretty much every day, and he's someone that I really miss. And then Nick Bideau, who was Maury's best mate, them together just have endless funny stories that keep people laughing forever. And then Stewie, because me and Stewie had a training camp in 2018, and Maury actually came for 2 weeks of it, and it was just like one of the best times pretty much in my life. And having like Maury there supporting us, like he's the only person when I used to turn up to training and I'd see Maury, I'd be like, all right, I've got to train good today. Like not many people can just make me try even harder, but yeah, Maury, just seeing Maury, he could make me try harder.
What was it about him that made you want to try so hard?
He had seen the world's best athletes, but then he just had this aura about him. Like he didn't even have to say anything. Like he did say a lot of things, and he had this big, loud voice that you could scream across the other side of the track and you could hear him perfect. But he just had this aura about him, and you just knew he had seen some good athletes. And if you ever got a compliment from him about how you're going, like you knew he meant it.
Yeah, wow, you could bank on that as a good sign.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really nice reflection there, Brett. Brett, finish this sentence. The most important thing in life is
being happy.
Brett Robinson, you've got some good days ahead, and certainly appreciate your input and for the Physical Performance Show.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust you enjoyed today's sharings with Brett Robinson. If you did, then please reach out and let Brett know what it was that you specifically enjoyed or took away. You'll find Brett over on Instagram at Brett_Robinson2323. Don't forget to also follow Brett over on Strava. After all, he is Strava's fastest ever half marathoner. Keep the podsies coming. That's simply the screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying at any given time and tagging in the show at Physical Performance Show. It's always so much fun to see them coming through. You can tag me in on social, find me over there at Brad_beer on Instagram or Twitter. And don't forget about the Physical Performance Show page on Facebook, where you can ask questions of the guests after an episode has gone live, and we'll endeavour to get those answered. Massive thanks to those leaving ratings and reviews and hitting subscribe for the show. Subscribing is in fact the very best way to help the show grow, as is simply sharing a link with anyone in your world that you know would enjoy or benefit from any of the episodes. While we are on the topic of thank yous, a massive thanks to Physiocrem for your ongoing support of the show. Don't forget to take advantage of their fantastic offer, 20% off the entire range over at physiocrem.com.au. A massive thanks to the team who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, audio engineer, Susan Wilkin, all things show administration, and Matthew Olding, all things show graphic design. Don't forget to check out the Dr. Stephen Seiler one-day workshop, Sustainable Training for Attainable Endurance Goals. It is such a rare opportunity to host Dr. Stephen Seiler down under, and we are so excited for July 2020. You can find out more information, of course, over at pogophysio.com.au/Dr. Seiler. Coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we will all be catching up with Dr. Stacey Sims, PhD. Stacey Sims is perhaps best known for her work around all things the female athlete, physiology and hormones. She's the author of the very popular Raw book and her incredibly popular TED Talk around why women are not small men. This has been an expert edition in the making for quite some time, so be sure to be tuning in next week for plenty of learn-ins from Dr. Stacey Sims. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.